Hello, everybody. I don't know if you can hear me, but welcome to our talk about workload. And if you are joining us in the chat, what you can write is maybe where you come from. That would be nice to know where we are talking from, different people from different parts of the country. You can also type in the chat where you are in your career, maybe you are an ACT, or perhaps you're more advanced teacher, you're head of department. Please do let me know. That will help me as well to know how I pitch the session on workload and well-being. Fantastic. Essex in Southend. I taught for 11 years in Essex, well, actually in Dagenham, Brentwood and Dagenham. So welcome. Really lovely to see you. ECT you too. And are you doing the framework from UCL or Ambition Institute? Are you a special, or your school does their own one? Which one are you using? That'd be nice to know which framework you're using for the ECF, Best Practice Network. Okay, and you're happy with it? How are you finding it? Or do you think it's a bit repetitive, or do you enjoy the content? Hi, Manjit, primary, fantastic. Punjabi, fabulous, that's lovely. So far, so good, most of the time. Lovely. And it's interesting, isn't it? You're watching a workshop on workload and well-being on a Sunday afternoon. Really? Hopefully some of you are watching this on replay and you actually enjoyed your Sunday. So well done, you guys who actually joined in halfway on a Sunday afternoon. That's very, very impressive. You're caring a lot about your workload. And any other participants, if you want to join in the chat, it's lovely to hear where you're coming from and where about in your career you are. And we're going to talk a bit more about workload. What seems to be, type in the chat as well, what do you find very cumbersome? What takes you a lot of your time and really ties you to death? Type that in the chat. Let's have a bit of a therapy session here. Let's talk about the big elephant in the room. What is taking most of your time? Hi, Magdalena. Marking, yeah. You can't hear me, Magda. Okay. Magda, I can hear assessments, marking assessments. Like that. Is your sound on? Okay, marking. Is behavior in there? Managing people's behavior? Okay, great, fabulous. Okay, so we've got an idea, assessment. Anything else that it seems to be planning? Yeah. And Susie, are you ECT? Are you whereabout are you in your career? Planning and marking. Oh God, of course, because Punjabi, you don't have that much stuff out there, so you have to plan your own resources all the time, and that takes a lot of time. Fantastic, that's really interesting. NQT+3, thank you, Susie. And it gets better. We think it does, doesn't it? But it does not always get better. So planning, assessment, behavior is not there, but I'm pretty sure that will probably be popping up for other people. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start sharing my screen, and what we'll do is I will talk through and whiz through lots of little quick wins that we can use in our career to actually get our life back. And there's lots and lots of resources on my Google Drive, and I will share the Google Drive with you, and the link is at the end of my slides. So you can access that later, and it's for you to download, adapt the resources. So please do take them, and hopefully you can get your life back very soon. So let's start together. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, as soon as I share my screen, I cannot see the chat. So this is why it might be a little bit funny. If I'm not responding, it's because I can't see your comments, but I will respond to them after I stop sharing. That sounds like a deal. So surviving your workload as an MFL teacher. You are here and you are awesome. Whatever, and every sometime you doubt yourself, you are awesome. The fact that you constantly trying to excite your students and trying to get them to progress and find your own resources, marking and so on, you are amazing. And sometimes it's quite a bit of a downfall when we're not knowing what we're doing, and it's just becoming a bit of a pit when we're just snowed under with things. So who am I? A little bit about me. I've been teaching for a long time, as you can see. I was head of department and faculty for a long time, and I moved to the dark side of SLT, but I'm actually quite a nice SLT, I think. I work very much a lot with ECTs and PGC, Student School Direct, Teach First. And I do a lot of the facilitation for the MPQs as well for UCL. So I'm quite on it. So I know what you're going through, and I know I'm a practitioner, and I'm teaching a reduced timetable, but I'm teaching a lot of, all of my classes are exam classes. So I know the marking and I know how much it takes. Like next Monday, year 11s are in mocks, right? So I know I will be marking those 39 listening, reading, writing, and speaking, and it would be fun. So here are some of my publication that you might want to use, and they are very good for the classroom strategies that you might find in those little books on how to make your life a bit easier. Because my work is all about well-being and workload and enjoying our job. So you've been there, right? So you know, anyone completed the workload challenge yet? What workload challenge? And then they give you extra challenge because it's a workload challenge. Haha, that's always the trouble, the catch-22 about the well-being in schools. And then you end up like this. And it's not actually at the end of the year. I think it's at the end of the first half term. This is probably how you're feeling right now. That poor owl. Well, I love that picture. So if you are in the early career framework, which framework are you using or have used? If you were an NQT, who were you doing it with? What are your frustrations? If you want to put that in a chat, and I'm going to stop sharing so I can read the chat. And what are you hoping for my session? What would you try to get? What would be your quick wins? Then I can answer your questions and I can try to help you a little bit more. So I'm going to stop sharing and I can read the chat, put things in the chat right now so I can see anything that you would like to share with me. What do you want to get out of this session? Anything useful? Any techniques, strategies? Apart from planning and marking, maybe some frameworks, some ideas of resources. Right. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to go back to this. Excellent. Right. Thank you. That's good. That's actually quite useful. So what we'll do is I'm going to go through pretty much the marking, the planning, because that's what actually gets us a lot of our time. Emails, and how to put the filter, the triage, how to triage and filter all of these emails, and the admin stuff, behavior, how to follow up on behavior and try to make things a bit more streamlined for us so we don't have to lose our life. So 3 questions for you. Think about something that you do that takes you a lot of time and that you want to change in your life as a teacher. Ask yourself those 3 questions. Is it motivating for the kids? Is it motivating to you? Do you enjoy doing it? Whatever it is that you have in your mind. If it's motivating, meaningful, and manageable, then do it. If it's motivating, but it's not manageable, then maybe we need to look at this, carry on doing it, but find another way to do it. And if it's not sure, and if you're not sure if it's actually meaningful for the kids, then why are you doing it in the first place? And that means you may have to have some conversations, especially with marking and triple marking and remarking and rechecking the marking. What's the point of that? Can we do that a little bit more easier and try to avoid having to do all this workload? That means in your pen right now, in your notebook, you can write down a name of a person in your school environment where you can have a conversation right now, tomorrow, on Monday. Why am I doing this? If it's meaningful, motivating, manageable, do it. But how? So let's have a look at this. If you're not sure, then drop it or do it differently. That's the way I'm looking at it. And there's always going to be a moment where you have to remember it's a job, okay? And we need to think about this as it's a job as well, and we need to enjoy it. Okay, I don't know if you have watched Elaine's talk that was just before me, and she did a fantastic talk about kids who throw chairs and spit and how to engage them. And I love that talk because it's all about what we do. Sometimes you spend a lot of time preparing something, you spend 3 hours, you go in the classroom and the kids are throwing chairs, spitting, they're not paying attention, and you think, I spent 3 hours on this and, you know, nothing, then they're really not respecting my time or my energy and my motivation. So little things for you to make more behavior a little bit less cumbersome. The key things with behavior is if the kids are not engaged or if they're not challenged, they're going to misbehave. So make it a real situation and try to bypass or navigating all of the GCSE things that we have to do. But if you make it real and if you make it engaging, then automatically the kids are going to start to be interested. So if you link it with work, if you link it with real life situation, and you make it fun, watch Elaine's workshop, actually, watch her talk on replay, and then she can actually give you some ideas on how to feel all of these things, because that's really, really interesting. So videos for homework, that's another one that can make you less cumbersome. Instead of doing speaking assessments in class and then marking it all, the best thing to do is you get the kids to make homework videos. So you want them to speak, you want them to do, you know, things like pronunciation, phonics. You give them a little script, a little role play. They can adapt the role play. That's an easy fix. You give it to them as a homework. You make them do in groups or in pairs. They record a video, and then you just have to watch the videos in class. So they can actually mark each other's work, each other's video with clear, like a clear framework, a clear marking assessment. I can give you that because I have loads of them and they're on my drive, so you can download them and adapt them. But that makes speaking assessment much easier, much more fun for them, and then less marking for you. So discussing, you know, you can make them mark in threes. So the third person is like a critical friend, and they can say, I'm not sure it's that level, and or maybe it's a bit higher, and then marking them as a 3 is far more interesting, and you don't have to do all the marking. Film clubs and film project, also that's another one, because with the project, and there's a lot of talks that were there and done about authentic resources. If you can watch them, they will give you the clues about those film project and those authentic resources project. Once the project is running, and you don't have to do any marking, it's running, and then you can go around the classroom and start marking. And look at doing lots of cross-curricular, because then you can share the marking with a geography teacher, with a history teacher, and everything starts to be shared. And that actually gets your life a little bit better, and the kids get engaged as well. So it's a win-win for everyone. So think about this for motivation engagement, to avoid having to do quite a lot of work. Think of these. This is for my ECTs. I actually ask my ECTs in the language department, what would be your top things to manage workload? First thing was routines. And she said to me, my ECT said to me, if I have to plan a lesson, I have a slide deck that is the same slide deck all the time. And it's on my drive. And when I plan a lesson, I just copy, paste, copy, paste. So listening task, copy, paste. Reading task, copy, paste. And then you adjust the content. So you have a slide deck that actually is ready for all your activities, whether it's a reading, a listening, maybe a do now, a starter activity, a plenary. This is there ready for you. So all you have to do is to drag it, put it there, and that saves you a lot of time in terms of actually, you know, mise en page and making things look pretty. So she said, routines, make your slide deck, and then it's easier for you to manage. Follow up with parents when you have behavior problem. It's long at the beginning because you feel like you're calling a lot of parents. But once you've called them once, generally they stop doing heading. So it's the thing, the price we have to pay. Once we start calling parents and we think, oh, I've got to spend time after school to ring this mum or what have you, then you've done it once or twice, and then after that it starts to stop. The behavior starts to improve because they don't want to get the parents being called. So do talk to parents as well who have that behavior. Well, and I was never good at French, or I was never good at Spanish. Because they are the one you really want to work with and you want to have on your side, because that will win all of your frustration in the classroom. And also obviously one game every lesson, because we're going back to engagement and fun, and that's Elaine's talk. So go and watch Elaine's talk, but that actually is going to help you. And the last thing she said to me was move around the classroom. do running translations, surveys, treasure hunts, and you walk around so you don't have to mark their work. So basically you marking as you go along, so you don't have to collect books. So it comes back to my top tips. These were my ECT top tips. But if you go to things you can do to manage your workload, these are fantastic websites that you can use that's going to create resources for you for free. Apart from, I think Textivate, no, sorry, it's the one, Textivate is actually you have to pay for, it's a very small fee, it's about £30 for a subscription for 1 year for an entire department. And they make you resources, a bit like Task Magic, and it's fantastic. You will gain a lot of time, so it's definitely worth spending £30 on that. So, things to manage your time. If you plan in sequence, if you plan a sequence of lesson in blocks of 3, so if you see them 3 times, you plan your three PowerPoints in the block, that saves you time. I know you might think, well, actually, I'm planning 3 lessons in a go. Yeah, but then you know you're going to be, your 3 lessons are planned. Another thing that's useful is to plan, if you can't plan in blocks, is to plan your lessons the night you have them. So if I have year 11 on Tuesday, I plan my lesson on Tuesday night for the following lesson, which might be on Friday or the next Tuesday, because it's fresh in my head and I can literally just use my slide deck that I already have and then do my retrieval practice with the activity that I have. So it's time management and trying to be a bit more effective on how I'm planning my lesson. So plan to save time, basically. So that's for my ECT. Use one slide deck per template and easy to reuse. Plan chunks of lessons. So look at your scheme of work. Where you're trying to be in 20 weeks time. I've got 3 lessons next week. I'm going to plan those 3 lessons in block and then go to the pub. Job done. Just plan your chunks of lessons so you don't feel like you're overwhelmed all the time. Save planning by using online resources. I like this one. If you're French, if you do French, or if you do Spanish or Chile, Punjabi, I'm not sure. I don't know if there are resources already made. But if you type, for example, imperfect FLE, French as a Français langue étrangère, you'd find loads of resources that are already been made. So why do you reinvent the wheel? Just download the stuff that's there for you and job done. You can download chunks of lessons on the TES for like £6. You get a whole 6 weeks worth of lesson. So sometimes you just tweak them around a little bit to make them relevant to your classes. But sometimes investing in £6 to get a whole block of 20 weeks worth of lesson, I'm saying, yes, I can actually get my life back. Things like Exam Pro makes exam papers for you, really, really useful. If your department doesn't have a login for that, just ask your head of department, maybe, can we have a login for Exam Pro? That's for AQA, but Edexcel has their own, and that's the Pearson website. Same thing, you can create topic exam papers, assessment papers by topic. And guess what? They've got mark scheme, so that you can just give it to your 10, 11, they can just do it and mark it themselves. But the key thing is to teach them that marking themselves is actually helping them to improve. There's a whole work behind that about metacognition and understanding why you're giving them the mark scheme. So that's quite useful, but you're getting your life back. You don't have to mark everything. So all you're left marking really is the writing and the speaking. And the speaking, you can be clever by doing it in pairs of 3s, which actually gain your time. And you walk around the classroom and then you listen to chunks of things. And then you tune your ear to think, actually, I need to work on these phonemes, these phonics. I need to work on this structure. So you don't have to mark every single one of them all the time. So that helps you a little bit. Okay, so that's what we're saying. Readjust for the following lesson at the end of the day. Self-assessment versus peer assessment. I'm going to go in that in a second. And use verbal feedback a lot. You will get your life back by not marking in writing, because the kids don't read it anyway. They don't read your writing, and they are going to listen to you talking to them about their work, but they're not going to be spending hours reading you. They probably can't even read your handwriting anyway. So we did a bit of student voice in my school, and we asked the students 2 years ago, how often do you read your teacher's comments? Not very often. Or if they do, they just don't pay attention, they forget it. And, you know, it's just that it doesn't sink in. So we moved completely to verbal feedback, which is far more efficient now and far more manageable in terms of workload. Mark in class as much as you can. Even the assessment, the listening assessment and the reading assessment, mark them in class, because what you're doing then is you're helping the students to troubleshoot the misconception. You don't need to mark a listening assessment. What's the point? It's a waste of time. Ticking boxes of A, B, C, if it's a multiple quiz, don't mark them. Mark it with the students, give them the transcript, and then they can work with you and you can address the misunderstanding. And it becomes a learning experience rather than you on a Sunday afternoon marking tests are a complete waste of time. It's not useful and it's not meaningful to them either. So summative assessments, you can mark some of them in class. You can basically mark pretty much everything in class apart from maybe the writing, which is something I'm going to come to you in a minute. Use online marking platform. So if you don't have Language Gym, another subscription you can ask for, Seneca is free and it will create classrooms, Seneca Learning. And for lots and lots of subjects in languages, they have pretty much all of the main one. So German, French, Spanish, but there are things like, Go Chinese that also have their own little things. So Italian have their own as well. The Language Gym is brilliant if you teach Italian, for example. So have a look at these websites and set them homework that they self-mark online. And then all you have to do is to log on and just check how the kids have done. So grammar, vocabulary, all of these little things like Quizlet, everything is marked online. You don't need to mark anything. And they're learning and they're working harder than you, which is a good thing. Caboodle and Active Learn are brilliant for things like matching up activity, understanding, grammar, vocabulary. Caboodle is actually AQA and Active Learn is Edexcel, Pearson. Worth having as a subscription because you get all the resources for free. So that means you have lessons that are already planned for you. You have interactive resources. The kids can be set for homework. So they drag things, fantastic resources. Again, write that down and get to your head of department and say, can we get the subscription, please? That saves you a lot of marking and the homework is marked online. And same, like I said to you before, whether it's translation, reading or listening, give them the mark scheme and get them to self-mark, because by self-marking, they understand their own mistakes. And then you're becoming a troubleshooting person. You're troubleshooting their mistakes and you're getting your life back. Marking with self-grades. So I'm going to show you some grades which you can adapt for your school and you can download them from my drive in a minute. You will basically highlight things that are very good for them, for the writing, and they will read, instead of reading your handwriting or trying to read your handwriting, they just look at the action and they just do their green pen action. And then they work harder than you. That's much easier. I talked about e-learning too as well. Okay, so no marking feedback. Questioning is the best form of feedback. That's been proved. There's a lot of research and evidence has been made about this. So if you want to get your life back, stop marking books. And if your school is very hot on marking books every 2 weeks, that you can't change, that's just a school policy, then do it in the classroom. So you walk around and then you get yourself a stamp or some stickers, and then you make some comments, and then you read and you give live feedback to the students as they work. You point mistakes, they correct in green pen. You give them verbal feedback, you make them write your verbal feedback in green pen so they have a record of it. And you don't need to collect books anymore. You don't mark 30 books in one lesson, but after 3 lessons, you will have seen pretty much all of the books. So it might take you 3 lessons to actually give feedback to every single student, but you don't take books home. That's it, finished, over. All you have to do is to walk around, give them some verbal feedback, troubleshoot the mistakes, listen when they're speaking and give them verbal feedback that they record themselves. So that's actually far easier for you. Use the whole class feedback template. I will show you in a second, and I will give you my template, which you can adapt as well. So the whole class feedback template allows you to mark maybe 6 assessments. So if you have a class of 34, and I have 1, okay, I'm one of them, my year 9, I've got 34 in my year 9 class, okay, so I know the struggle. You take 6 assessments. So you take 2 top, 2 middle, 2 bottom. As a sample, you mark those 6, and then you do a whole class feedback. And you say, well, I noticed that some of you forget your accent, some of you do this, some of you do that. You might want to take 10, if you're a control freak like me, you can take a bit more, but you're saving marking 33. And you can actually profile the students you want to check as well. So you're gaining time. And then when they write it, the proper one, you can say, look, I'm going to give you a bit of time to correct your work. And I want you to give me back the perfect version. a perfect version with no mistakes. And that means what you're receiving, the 33 that you would receive, would probably be their best because they would have had time to go back with it. That means it saves you marking because you won't have to correct everything. So another thing that's worth doing is take a highlighter, and instead of, when you circle SB, grammar, and that takes you forever to do this, you take a highlighter for one color. So for me, it's green. When it's good, I highlight in green. So crunchy sentences, good bits that they can reuse in the future, I highlight in green. And any mistake that they do, I take a pink highlighter and I just highlight the little mistakes. If it's an accent, I just highlight the E where the accent is missing. And then I give it back to them and I said, correct it. And I let them do it because I let them think about where the mistakes are. And I know which kids are going to struggle. So what I'll do is verbal feedback. I walk around the classroom and I said, do you know why I put that in pink there? No, I'm not sure. What do you think is missing? What tense is this? Or is there a time reference missing in that sentence? And by going around the class, I can troubleshoot and help them correct their own mistakes. That cuts down my marking of 33 kids down to about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, because I'm very quick at doing that. And if you can give them a very clear template on how to peer assess, they can self-mark or correct themselves or correct another person, as long as you give them clear instructions on what to look for. And I'll show you in a second what that looked like. So to peer assess or not to peer assess, ask yourself this question. The awareness that students need to know what to look for before they can mark their friends. Otherwise, it's going to be, well done, good work, try harder. Yeah, so the EBR is going to be really rubbish. So think about what are the criteria. Once you've done one template of criteria, you won't have to do them again, because generally you just have to change the headings. Students need to see the useful purpose of self or peer marking, especially if you teach in a girls' school like me. Girls like to have teachers' feedback, and parents like to have teachers' feedback too. So if you explain to the students the purpose of them being aware of their own mistakes and correcting themselves or each other, then they will see it as a positive experience rather than you not marking their work. So it's all about the psychology of how you're going to present this experience and this activity. Give them clear sounds, phonics to look for. So if you let them mark each other speaking, you say to them, look for the silent H, look for the ñ sound, the wa sound. So give them clear instruction on what they're looking for. And that helps them to mark what's the purpose of the assessment, basically. And if you give them keywords to look for, or accents or key tenses, then they are able to mark someone's work. Because if you just say, mark your friend's work, they won't know what to look for. So 3 things to do with your assessments and your data that goes with the assessment. Am I clear on the purpose of this assessment? Why am I doing this assessment, and effectively the data that's been collected with this assessment? How is it going to improve the kids? If it's a listening and a reading activity and you want to do a snapshot of where they are right now, then easiest just to give them the mark scheme, let them mark themselves and just give you the mark, because as soon as they know, well, I've got 10%. But it's okay to have 10%. If you make it's okay, let's move on it together. Where did you lose mark? What was difficult? Then you troubleshoot and you create a lesson for them where they actually, therapy of this session. They see their mistakes as more as a moving forward experience, because otherwise they just get a test back of 10% and then there's no reflection, there's no purpose to it. This is basically a waste of an hour. Is this the most efficient process? Have the workload implication been properly considered? So when you do an assessment, think about it as it needs to be worth good value for money, good value of my time. It has to have a meaning to them and a meaning to me. So if you don't trust their marking, you think they're going to cheat, then there's a problem, because they're not really understanding the purpose of the assessment. They think they're going to be judged on that. And if it becomes a judgment, then it's negative. An assessment is designed to help them progress, understand their mistakes and move forward. And then you can do another test later, the same thing in the classroom, mark together, so you don't have to mark it. And then they make progress and then they feel really valued. They're seeing engagement, they're seeing motivation here. And the other thing is quite important is the data valid? So if they're self-marking, peer assessing, can you trust the marking? If they can't trust it, then how do I make sure that they are not cheating or they are valued. So that's all about the psychology of how you're presenting it. And it takes a bit of time, but once you get there, the kids will work with you on that. And can you rely on this data? So ask yourself those 3 big questions. So be open-minded with your practice, keep learning new tricks about how you can, do things differently. And it's not because your department's been doing it for 30 years the same way, that is the right way to do it. And by the way, Ofsted does not want you to mark and triple mark work. Nobody does. That's stupid, okay? There's no Ofsted inspector out there that will say you have to mark every single book. In fact, we don't even look at marking anymore. Okay, what we're looking at is progression. So as long as your students are making progress and there's a progression through sequencing, then you will be fine. The students will be fine and they will make progress. So sometimes having the guts to question why we're doing what we're doing. Can we do things differently? So do talk to your line manager and your mentor about processes, because you can change things. It's all about the kids and the meaningfulness of what we're doing. So what is reflective and what's actually working is the time for students to reflect and improve. And sometimes that is more powerful than content. And then we all try to work through our content all the time, but reflecting on personalized learning checklists or assessments, reflecting on homework, that's really precious time that the kids really need. And sometimes we overlook that time. So get them to green pen their work, improve their work, walk around the classroom, mark with them, sit next to a child and work through an improvement plan whilst the rest of the class is doing something else in silence, for example. You're cutting your marking a lot. And if you're not sure, ask your kids themselves, what do you find useful? If you think that a Google form on a listening assessment is much quicker and actually more valuable, then why are you bothering doing on paper? Do a Google form. It's much quicker marking as well. And teach them how to revise, because it's something that they don't know how to do. And you will gain time by teaching them how to revise for keywords, revise for vocabulary, revise for verbs in 3 tenses. And if you spend lessons in lesson time doing that, you're cutting yourself marking, because you constantly be writing the same thing. Learn your verb, revise your past tense, revise this, revise that, and they're not doing it. And the reason why they don't do it is because they don't know how to do it. And we've got 2 years of COVID where these kids have never been taught how to do things for themselves. So we have a direct consequence here from the isolation they've had, and you're adding to your workload, because you're constantly repeating the same thing in your marking over and over again. So if it's broken, then we need to go back to the roots of the problem, which is they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to learn verb, how to conjugate verb, and let's help them. Whether you use the sentence builders, whether you use the grammar, verbs, conjugation, show them how to do it. So work-life balance, coming back to my point. These are things that you need to do for yourself, okay? If you're not doing them, then eventually what happens is you feel like you're not enjoying what you're doing. And what I mean by the weekend dilemma is the guilt. Have you been there? Yeah, so Saturday you're going to a gig, or you went out to meet your friends, and then you feel like, oh, I've done work, oh my God, I haven't marked this, I haven't marked my year 11 papers, and I haven't planned my 6 lessons. And weekend dilemma, the guilt of not doing any work at the weekend. Sometimes we just have to say, do you know what, it's the weekend, it's life, right? Let it go. Don't do any work at the weekend. The fact that you're here listening to me on a Sunday afternoon says a lot about your work-life balance. So if you're watching on replay, well done. That's what you should be doing. But the good thing is you have ways around it to get your life back. So think about work at home, work at school. I tend to work late at school, but then when I go home, I don't take any work. And my home life is my home life. So sometimes you have to think about what is your balance of your weekend and your home life. So resources. Here are some things you can take from my workshop, and they are free to download from my Google Drive. This is the assessment whole class feedback. This is the one you use when you mark 6 people or 10 people max out of 30. You just look at what they've done. You give them WW and EBI. They stick it in their book, so they have a trace of marking. And then your head of department is happy. SLT is happy because it's in their book. Misconceptions. And then you ask them to redraft their piece of work and make it perfect. So that's an easy way to gain sometimes for marking writing. Now, this is what I mean by dirt. Okay, so this is the grid. Lots of people do this. So bear in mind, there are loads of them already made on the TES you can download, but this one is quite easy. Basically, what I've done is I just took the GCSE mark scheme and I highlight it, and then I highlight what went well, the target, the common mistakes that they make, and the action they have to do. That cuts down my marking to half an hour. I can mark 30 year 11, 32 marker question in 40 minutes, 45 minutes max, because I don't have to correct every single thing. I use my highlighters, I highlight the good bits, and I use my pink highlighter to identify mistakes. When I give it back to them, they have to solve the problem themselves, and I'm walking around. So I constantly walk around. I never sit down in my lesson. I'm always walking to help them out. And then I make them do a little reflection and improvement tasks to be completed. I want them to bullet point. So sometimes improvement tasks could be Seneca learning. I want to revise the formation of the avoir and être past tense forms. And I will set up the assignments for them on Seneca learning with their names. So it takes me 10 minutes to do it, but I don't need to mark anything. So their therapy, if they've got problems, the therapy is on Seneca learning, and they just do it. And if they haven't done it, all I have to do is just give a quick call to mum, quick email to mum and say, I noticed she's struggled with her past tense. I've set up an assignment. She hasn't done it. Can you make sure she does it, please? Job done. The mum will be on her back and she won't do it again. So just, do you see how I mean? How you can very quickly go into a cycle of getting the kids to be responsible for their own learning and being independent, because you want them to be independent. Then you can do less work. Because what happens is we spoon feed them all the time, and then they're incapable of doing anything for themselves. So we need to kind of cut the cord a little bit and give them a bit more independence on how they're doing things. This is available on my Google Drive. You can download it, and then you can adapt it for your classes as well. So feel free to use them. And this is the AQA one. So there's the 16 marker question for foundation. And then there's another one with the 32 marker question that you can use as well. And they're all on my drive. Same thing. If you prefer to tick, that's okay. I'm more highlight person. I think it's much quicker. But after a while, you know what's in the grid so off by heart that it's just very, very quick to do. And then you can do a lot of peer assessment as well. You know, they get familiar with the grid, so you can discuss it. So why are you a 7 to 8? What do you need to do to be a 9 to 10? And then you can have this conversation with a think, pair, share, a bit of conversation in the classroom, and that becomes far more meaningful than just spending 3 hours trying to mark it and write it all in, you know, in red pen, and then the kids just don't know anything and they don't read anything. Okay, so where to find resources to cut your time? So this is a link to my drive. It will be available to you. And I'm going to copy and paste this link on the chat as well at the end, so you can access all the resources. These are some websites that will make your life easier. Some of them you have to pay for, like the Teach It language. Fantastic. Lots of resources, role plays already made, answers that are already made, modern answers, worksheets, PowerPoints, name it, it's on Teach It language. Exam Pro, obviously, for exam questions. Twinkle, I like it. I have a love-hate relationship with Twinkle because it's an American website, and a lot of the stuff is for K-12 American kind of way. But there's some really cute stuff for lower school in there. So for year 7, year 8, primary resources. I mean, if you're a primary teacher, you probably know Twinkle very well. It's a love-hate relationship, but I do find it helps me to find resources easily and not spending 3 hours trying to find something. If you haven't joined a group on Facebook for MFL teacher, then do it, because there's so many resources out there. And sometimes you find someone spends so much time doing a lovely PowerPoint and you think, oh, thank you so much, you've saved me some time to do this. But it's great to share, and I do share my resources as well on the Facebook pages. So I do love creating, you know, fancy PowerPoints, but I use my slide deck, so I don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time. My slide deck looks the same, meaning that my students have a routine, so they know what my starter slide looks like, what my listening slide looks like. So everything is very, very following a routine. Association for Language Learning obviously has fantastic resources. So has the NLCP for phonics, schemes of work, resources. Go and have a look at this website. It's magic. And for French, TV5 Monde, but you may have some for your own language where you have resources that are authentic that you can use and explore. And the worksheets are made for you. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel and create it. For songs, for example, if you're like me and love using songs, lyricstraining.com is a great website because you can just set a homework with a song, and then you can select if you want beginners, advanced, intermediate, and then you've got karaoke. The kids have a gap fill activity to do. So lyricstraining.com, go for it. And then it's easy homework. You don't have to mark anything because you will see who's done their work and the percentage of how they've done. And you don't need to mark it. Brilliant. Absolutely love it. So there's lots of really things out there, and use the technology to help you to navigate your workload as well, because that could be much easier for you. Okay, and another things, resources that I could advise you to have a look at is these books. I love The Learning Rainforest from Tom Sherrington. There are some great resources in there on how to do things that are meaningful and that doesn't implicate on your work-life balance. Same thing with Mark Plan Teach. I buy this book to all my ECT at the beginning of year one. I give it to them as a present. They finish their PGCE, but this book helps the young teachers to navigate workload. What is the best way to Mark Plan Teach without having to crumble under the workload? So if you haven't got Mark Plan Teach, maybe it's in your staff room, have a look around. Maybe if it's not, then ask your PCM or your induction tutor to get you a copy. It's a great book. And I also love Teaching for Realists by Omar Akbar. He's brilliant. He's fantastic. He really makes me laugh. But what he does, he makes it real. And there is so much things we have to do every day that it will make you realize, yeah, why am I doing this? Why do I even bother doing this? And have a look at this. It's quite a small book, but again, ask your induction tutor to get you these lovely literature. Twitter account, who to follow for languages. So I've put that as a list of people that will help you, because once you follow them, you can use their resources or their wisdom, words of wisdom. Obviously, the Gianfranco Conti is great for sentence builders and for learning to make students a bit more independent with the use of languages. If you're not used to using the extended progression instructions, the EPI, go and have a look on the language gym. So I have mentioned this twice already, but the language gym is fantastic and it will help you get your life back, because you can get sentence builders that are already made for you with the activities that go with them, translation activities, match-up activities, and they just have to do is just print it and then work for them in the classroom. So lots of really good resources there that you can use with your classes. So the Twitter pages for different resources and for different subjects as well that you can use. So that's really it from me in terms of contents, because I want to talk to you and I want to see the chat. And if I share, I can't see the chat. So yes, the link to my Google Drive, I'm going to put this right now into the chat so then you can see the resources. Let's see if I can actually find it. But down the line, I think the key thing is we do too much for the kids. We do too much and we don't allow them to be independent. And when they get to sixth form, by the time they get to A-level, they are incapable of doing anything for themselves because we spoon feed them. And that's not healthy for you, and it's not healthy for them either. So the question is, how much can I do? How much can I cut? Because it's about independence. And if they are independent, then you are automatically going to work less and you're going to get your life back. So that's down the line, that's the thing, isn't it? So I'm going to show you this drive. I'm going to, if I share my screen again, so I'm not going to be able to see, I'm not going to be able to see the chat, but I'm going to copy the link and I'm going to put it in the chat. Yeah, there we go. I waited till the end because otherwise people can't necessarily see it. So here's access to the drive. Yes, I agree. I love creating materials and it never ends. Same. I absolutely love creating material, and then it's like a vortex, isn't it? How much of the resources can I use, and so on. And I think at some point the key thing is it worth good value? Is value for money? Is it good value money of your time? If you're going to spend 3 hours for an activity that's going to take 2 minutes in a classroom, you will get engagement, but down the line it's a very short-lived engagement. So think about the value for money of your time. How long is, if it's a project that you're doing on the movie and you're going to be, you know, spending some time doing this project, the whole booklet that goes with a movie or with a celebrity or character, then it's great. That's fantastic, because then it will last for a few lessons. But if you're doing like a lesson plan that lasts 3 hours and the activity is 2 minutes, it's not worth your time. Think about it. Right, so hopefully I find the websites going to be helping you. Mark in the classroom. Yeah. Meet when working resources and game. Yes, word wall. So if you're not familiar with word wall, it's free, completely free. Put it in the chat, and there's games and resources, and you can make them. And it takes you 5 seconds to make a game. It's interactive. You can set it as a homework, and you can even do it in the classroom when they drag the thing with a pen. You know, that takes you 5 seconds. You can make it at break time with a cup of coffee, having a chat with your colleagues. Word wall is great. Textivate, because you can create interactive resources. It costs about £30 a year to get the subscription for Textivate, but once you have it, you will never go back. You'll wonder how you live your life without Textivate, because it's so good. You can create translation, match up activities, engaging things as well with lots of listening activities that you can find as well on the word wall, because the word can get pronounced, so that you can, you know, do phonics. Sure, I can send that again, no problem. I'll paste that here. Yeah, so in the drive, you'll find the grid, the marking grid that you can adapt. You'll find the dirt sheet as well, the whole class assessments. There's lots of website activities, some of my slide deck, the one that I use for every lesson. So all I do is I copy paste. So the student know what my do now start activity slide looks like. And then they walk in the room and they know this is the activity, the date at the top of the title, the objectives, there's a help box and there's an extension. And all I have to do is copy and paste. So I don't have to reinvent the slide every lesson. I just have one that's already made. And as much as you're going to mark in the classroom with the kids, it's going to be very valuable time for them to understand how to move forward. So taking things home and giving something back a week later, you've lost the momentum. You've lost it. They forgot what they've written. They forgot what they've spoke about. You've lost that momentum. But if you mark live, then they get the gist of their mistakes. And you say, when you're in the hall sitting that exam, how are you going to manage? I cannot see the drink light. I just put it on the drive. Can you see it in the chat? I've just shared it. I can't either. Okay, let me just go back. I'm going to copy the link. Link copied. Okay, why is this not working? It's kind of strange. Paste. How's that? I've sent to everyone. Hang on. There we go. That's a good point. Thank you. Can you see it now? Send to everyone. Can you see it? Yay! Sorry, technical. Beautiful, fantastic. Thank you. So sorry about that. I just had to change to everyone. Okay, great. So what you'll find in there, lots of really good resources, but you've got my email. And at the start of the slide, my slide is on the Google Drive as well. You've got my email. If you want some ideas or if you want something that I mentioned, but you can't find it on the drive, then drop me a line and I'm happy to help you and get your life back and get off this chat and go out with your family now and get your life back. That's why I'm going to finish early, because I think you need to have your life. My email, I put it in the chat, is jclaro@gumleyhouse.com. There we go. It's in the chat now. Okay, great. So you've got all the resources. You've got my ideas. So I want you to take your time now before you switch off to take your planner, whatever you have in front of you, your notebook or your planner. Now I want you to write down 3 things that you're going to do differently from now on to get your life back. Just take that time, take 5 minutes to reflect on your practice. What can you do to cut the crap? Because that down the line, that's what it is. What can you cut to get your life back? And once you've written it in your notebook and you tap it in the chat, as a group therapy, what are you going to do to get your life back? Write it in the chat. I want to see that you're on your way to get your life back right now. What is it that you're going to do? Yes, the 1 slide deck. Good choice. Mark in the classroom. Do not take things home unless it's a mock. Yeah, 1 slide deck. Good. Live marking. Mark in the classroom. Yeah. Unless it's a mock paper and you have to plan sequences of lesson. God, you will learn so much more time. Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that you can do, self-marking, as long as they know what to look for, then why are you bothering marking it? They know what to look for. But it has to be very, very clear. So you have a look on the drive, play around with the drive, you'd find some resources on what to look for exactly. And I keep populating it. So there are things that I drop in there and then it might not be there tonight, but it might be there tomorrow. So keep looking at this and just click shared with me and add it to your drive, because there will be things that I update all the time. So you might find other resources will appear later. Yeah, trip to the restaurant. That's great for motivation. Absolutely. And it's very easy to do. It doesn't take you a lot of work to do, apart from a risk assessment, but you just have to call them, just book a table for 30 people, and that's great. Tapas. Fabulous. You're very welcome, everyone. I hope you get your life back. It's exactly 1:37. That means you can now go and have a pub lunch with your family. And on tomorrow, you're not collecting books. You're marking in the classroom, and you are going to only mark things that need to be marked, i.e. mock papers. Writing and speaking, listening and reading can still really be marked with the mark scheme. They can still do that themselves. So, and they will learn more from that. Absolutely, definitely. Keep meeting co-teachers regularly, because when you talk with other people, you get ideas. And if you work in isolation, it gets very daunting. It's important that we keep in a network of people and share ideas and share our frustration. Definitely, that's very, very good. Absolutely. Thank you all very much for your time. I'm going to let you go, and we love you and leave you now. And I hope you found the session useful. And if you need anything, you can't find anything in my drive, just drop me an email and I will send you the link or the resources that you need. Thank you very much, and have a lovely Sunday and get your life back. Thank you. If you guys have any questions, just ask. I'm still here, so I can see there's still a few participants. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.